Hello everyone, Ace here, and today, well, I'm just going to have to go ahead and say it. Having recently watched The Woman King, I can safely say that it is, without any exaggeration, the worst historical revisionism I have ever seen. This film can safely be described as the birth of a nation of our generation, and it is the perfect ammunition to use against CRT activists who claim that they're trying to teach history, because this film completely proves that notion to be utterly false. But for those of you who want to know more, well, here's a general outline of the plot of the film. The Woman King is about the story of how the kingdom of Dahomey revolted in 1823 against the Oyo Empire. And according to the film, the purpose of this revolt was that King Gezo and his loyal General Nanaska did it to end the transatlantic slave trade. The transatlantic slave trade that, by the way, the film wants you to believe that the kingdom of Dahomey was only reluctantly involved in, and also only did to bad people who enslaved others. This culminates towards a point near the end of the film where the Dahomey Amazons decide to wipe out an entire port city and kill everyone in it, because that city is filled with white people, and as we all know, white people are all literally Hitler. And as the film makes it very clear, all white people apparently deserve to be systematically exterminated from the world, because genocide is apparently good when it's done to white people by black people. And the film ends with King Gezo announcing that he is going to end slavery in the 1820s. So now that I've covered the basic outline of the film, allow me to explain why it is complete and utter nonsense, and should be treated with absolute disgust. The only things that I can safely say that are actually historically accurate in the film are the fact that King Gezo was indeed king of Dahomey in 1823, and that the kingdom did indeed revolt against the Oyo Empire. What is very much not accurate, however, is why the kingdom of Dahomey revolted in the first place. It was not to end slavery, and instead the reason was quite the opposite. The kingdom of Dahomey did it to actually gain more slaves, and thus gain a larger share of the market of the slave trade itself. So the film took the historical story about how slavers wanted to become bigger slavers and somehow tried to twist it into a story about how slavers wanted to end slavery. This is like if someone made a film claiming that the Confederacy were a bunch of abolitionists that tried to secede from the Union to end slavery in the American Civil War. Except even that isn't a fair comparison, because at the very least, the Confederacy didn't actually engage in mass human ritualistic sacrifice, unlike the Kingdom of Dahomey. And by the way, while the Kingdom of Dahomey is shown to be ritualistic and holding celebrations, the mass ritualistic human sacrifice is carefully omitted from the film. In addition, as you could probably guess, the climax at the end of the film, where the Dahomey decide to kill Whitey, never actually happened either. Though I suppose it is nice of the people who made the film to admit that, yes, they are in fact a bunch of pro-genocidal maniacs with this message. I mean, I already knew that, but it is nice to have yet more evidence showing it. But as a final piece, let's now move on to the story of the actual Nanaska, who historically was not a Dahomey general in the 1820s, but instead a raw recruit in the 1880s and 1890s. And one of the details we happen to know about her is about her first kill, which was against an unarmed and defenseless captive slave, who she, without mercy, beheaded and then drank the blood of. The titular hero of the film, ladies and gentlemen. That said, I do have to bring up one final piece of history as well, and talk about how it is depicted or at least mentioned in the film. That being people who actually historically fought to end slavery, namely the British Empire, who at the time had an entire naval fleet dedicated to stopping the slave trade. Their efforts being largely considered the most expensive humanitarian mission in human history. Naturally, this should be seen as a big deal, and the film should probably give some very real credit to the British for doing this. However, that is not the case. Instead, we get a single throwaway line from a Portuguese slaver about how the British keep seizing his cargo. A throwaway line that is deliberately obfuscated because the film doesn't want to acknowledge the fact that British people aren't all completely evil. And that, my dear viewers, would simply not do, because it gets in the way of the film's message. That message being that black people are all kings who single-handedly built America, and who are being systemically oppressed by Whitey, and they must therefore punch up by enacting a final solution against Whitey. As you could probably tell, I'm not exactly a huge fan of this movie, the message it wants to push, or the historical revisionism it is engaging in to push that message. It is an atrocity in filmmaking and deserves to be viewed with such scorn and disgust. Now, of course, for those curious, I will be leaving links in the description below to the sources that I have used, so you can check them all out for yourselves if you should so desire. But in any case, this has been Ace. Hope to see you you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.